Hi and welcome. We're picking up from where we left off yesterday, which was discussing the NYT expose, so to speak, about the funding of media outlets, politicians around the world, and interestingly in India as well by China, by the Chinese propaganda man. Called Neville Singham, who is of Sri Lankan descent, but of course born and raised in the United States, and how he's been reaching out to all these different fronts and routing money through the CCP to those fronts. And the allegations are that one media outlet in particular, NewsClick, uh, has been funded by this gentleman. And there have been some serious allegations made on that front. 2021, if you recall, the ED also raided them. So let me just dive in and welcome Sanjay ji to our channel.
Namaste.
Namaste. So, and of course, Abhijit Ayyar Mitra is with us. Please start, lady. Mildred and
Yes,
Smita, of
thank you.
course. Sorry, Smita. Smita was the first one to be here. That's why I've got used to her being here. Before me. Smita came before me also. Anyway, carry on, Abhijit.
What do you want me to carry on about? What specifically?
Okay, so tell me, yeah, today it exploded. We won't take names of people who have been mentioned, but Nishikant Dubey
Of course, we will
went.
take name. I will take name. If you have objection, you can tell me.
I am not responsible for Abhijit and Sanjay ji on my channel.
I am definitely going to take names.
Maybe we should move to Jaipur dialogues. Lock, stock, and panel. Let's all just move there. But anyway, it's been
So look,
explosive.
I
Go ahead.
I I I think Nishikant Dubeji is a lovely human being. He's a fantastic parliamentarian. He's a very powerful speaker. But I would respectively disagree with him. I don't think there are patriots and anti-nationals in this country. I believe in, what Adi Shankaracharya said in terms of Viveka Chudamani, the crown jewel of being able to distinguish between what is good and what is bad. Unfortunately, in this country, we have a lot of alleged journalists who lead a hand to mouth existence, who are so desperate for money, fame, whatever, that they'll grab the first opportunity that comes, especially when you run a pathetic little rag. So what has happened here is this is essentially a thing of you see what communists call a useful idiot, a person who thinks he or she is being very very popular, writing a load of crap, not realizing the implications of what you're writing and who it's helping. Uh, I have a very poor opinion of the New York Times. I don't take anything the New York Times says seriously. I think they're a low class, third rate outlet. I think there is more integrity to be found in the red light areas of Delhi than there is in the editorial board of the New York Times. But that aside, I don't want to go by what the New York Times said. I want to go by the actions of NewsClick. So, if you go by the actions of NewsClick, you will see there are two things that they feature very prominently by this, uh, really, this sort of parvenu wannabe low class chap who's really looking for a bit of money, fame, socialization. Of course, nobody in Delhi will really let them into their living rooms, but still, he thinks he can get into their living rooms. Called TDH Nair. Now, the problem with TDH Nair, you see, is he only writes two things. Rafale is number one, and Adani in Australia is number two. Now, what happens with Rafale is, you see, Rafale is the single biggest strategic threat to China uh, in the in their western front. Okay, in their eastern front, they've got Korea and Japan, which are extremely powerful adversaries. But on the eastern front, the Rafale represents the biggest threat, the biggest security headache to China. The second issue for China has been their mines in Australia. Australia is cracking down on commodities extraction by Chinese mine operators and things like that. And what ends up happening is uh, the only person who managed to shake them up and break their monopoly on mining, because the West now only has one big monopoly on mining, and that's Rio Tinto. For commodities mining, for diamond mining, there's always De Beers, but for commodities mining, there's Rio Tinto. And the only person that who managed to break it up, because he specializes in greenfield projects, is Adani, who went to Australia and really rattled the Chinese cage quite a bit. which is why there was a lot of opposition to him out there as well. So you have NewsClick. Essentially, they're blighters. They have no real day jobs and things like that. They just need to publish something to stay relevant, get invited to parties and things like that. And wannabe who needs to social climb, who's willing to write all the things that they need written, who also then, it turns out, is doing what the Chinese want him to do without realizing what he's wanting to do. Now, anybody who's met Ravi Nair or the editor of NewsClick will tell you they don't have the brains to be spies for any country. I would honestly say my dogs have a higher IQ and EQ than those people. So I think it's very wrong to attribute motives to them. However, what you can attribute to them is stupidity of the highest possible order. And that is why communists believe in the institution of the useful idiot. It's a very, very important theme. Now, the way it is done in America, if you remember, it was the same New York Times, which I don't ever take seriously, which ran a expose on how Qatar was buying up think tanks in America, especially Brookings. Now, the allegations that the New York Times made were very subtle. They did not say that Qatar had bought the Brookings. What they said was that Qatar had found a Brookings that was generally parroting their talking points, and so they found it the natural outlet for their funding. Now, there is a reason that this happens, and there is a reason we do not allow foreign funding in news outlets in this country and should never be allowed. Okay, the reason is very clear. China and America are the two biggest enemies on earth. And yet, China was literally built by America, and the American economy sustains because of China. Okay, China's production is entirely because of investment by America and access to the American market. And America's market thrives and flourishes precisely because of cheap Chinese manufacturing. Interdependence, perfectly fine. FDI, perfectly fine. You tell me, where do they allow China to invest in sensitive projects or in their press and media and things like that? They do not. So China does other things. They offer Jeff Bezos market access, and then they soften him up and see to it that the Washington Post, which he owns, then runs sweetie pie stories. So this is what happens with News Laundry also. Omidyar is deeply involved in China, and so he finds his charity arm finds a thing like News Laundry that peddles narratives that are most suitable to China. So this keeps happening out there. Again, I think we should be too harsh with them, because stupid people. We must have compassion for those who are born with less mental faculties than us. I
Okay,
don't think it
Abhijit.
behooves us
Jesus
to
speaking. Jesus
down
speaking.
Sanjay
talk,
ji,
or
one
talk
second.
down to
Yeah.
our intellectual inferiors.
Okay. Sanjay ji, should we really be this charitable? Because looking at the map or whatever's being shown in the media, something like 26 crores has been donated to these establishments. I mean, that's a lot of money. It may be pocket change for Abhijit, but that's a lot of dosh, like we would say.
Yeah, but I'm really intrigued seeing so much of sympathy dripping. Maybe he's
Yeah.
just coming from the church. That
Yes.
happens.
Or maybe
And
he's been in touch with China.
all the compassion.
First, you're misgendering me. Second, I want you to all remember that I managed to convert Mr. Sanjay Dixit. His new name is Samuel Dixit, and I gave him five.
that,
I gave him five.
that,
I gave him a
that
5 kilo bag of rice.
Aditya, I'm not able to hear.
5 किलो मेरे पास
is
He can hear
फोटोग्राफिक
you.
प्रूफ है कि मैंने को आपको 5 किलो
he really
चावल दिए
has
हैं
some
और
hope.
आपका नाम
That's called
और आपका नाम
aspirational, and that's
and
called
your name is
optimism.
Samuel Dixit.
Aditya, I'm not able to hear you.
Optimism and
Aditya, I'm not
aspiration
able to hear.
combined. Yeah. I was just like, just around the time this money is supposed to be funneled into NewsClick, I was looking at their stats, the newsclick.in. Suddenly I find that they start getting an upward curve somewhere around December 2020. December 2020, there, I think that's the time this Singham, this new Singham, we are familiar with somebody else as Singham, but this
Yeah.
Singham suddenly pumps in the money, And lo and behold, the views explode in 1, 2, 3, 4 months to 36 million video views
Wow.
uh, by January 2021. Okay. And lo and behold, 220,000 subscribers in a month. And I'm not sure what time the ED raid took place. ED raid is supposed to be about 2 months back, and
2021. I can find
2021 what
out.
month?
I'll find out for you.
Yeah. And then we see a sudden slide again, and never seems to have recovered since then. Right now, in spite of all the crores that have gone into it,
February.
it,
February. Actually,
sorry?
Valentine's Day, 14th February 2021.
Well,
I don't
that's
know if he
actually
said,
that's the way Saint Valentine used to spread his love. You know,
I don't know if
he used to convert people forcibly, murder them, do everything, and then those who converted, he used to shower them with gifts. And that's the history of Saint Valentine. So this guy in February he gets a precipitous fall. So I think that all fits in very nicely. That he gets his peak in January 2021, and in February 2021, he is back to terra firma from 36 million views to about 23 in Feb and 7 million views in March. So somebody who's got such great crores, I wish somebody gave it to me also. I could
yeah.
also do something. Nobody does that to me. I have to earn everything from the AdSense only. YouTube to depend totally on the
I don't even
largesse
know
of
that
YouTube.
because of Abhijit and Suhail and their habits.
Are they blacklisted by YouTube?
No, not as yet, but it's a matter of time.
Okay, okay, okay. And
That's why
then
Abhijit's still on China.
after that, it's been a struggle all the way through. Somebody's got 48 crores and is listed way below what is called a Jaipur Dialogues, which has never got a penny from anybody. That's like it's saying something. But there's also a history to this Singham, this Neville Roy Singham. This Neville Roy Singham apparently he comes from a family who were immigrants to Burma. His father's name is Archibald Singham. They were immigrants to Burma
Sri
and
Lankans.
Sri Lankans and immigrated to Burma. And it is there that they came into contact with these, what is called the Peking group of Ceylonese Communist Party. Now, the Ceylonese Communist Party has two factions. Used to have two factions. The Sinhalese, etc., they used to be in the Moscow faction. And the Tamilians used to be in the Chinese faction. This Archibald Singham, he was a Tamilian and he was in the Chinese faction. So that's where you can trace back the connection to China for this guy, this Neville Roy Singham. And
So it's a
once you know
generational
that
thing.
particular background, then it should not be a surprise that he is found to be working for the CCP. So that's the little factual information that I have gathered. And of course, I don't agree with where's Abhijit gone? Just
He had
disappeared.
to run. He had to run because he knew that you were going to rip him apart. So he first, before the show started, and Smita knows this, he said, I'm going to be here for 30, 40 minutes.
Yes.
The moment he took his pro China stance, and then he ran.
30, 40? It's only 15 minutes.
Not even 15. He's
He ran away in
vanished.
10 minutes. Okay.
No.
Uh, as far as this guy is concerned, this Purukayast or whatever, I mean, he's not alone into this. This Avisar Sharma is quite a scandal. You know this guy. And he is, unlike what Abhijit says, that they are very hard up, and so they require crores. Even I am very hard up. I only get pension, so I can also do with crores, and nobody's giving it to me. But this Avizar Sharma is not so hard up. His wife is an income tax officer. You know that famous case, and
The one,
they
the one
run
that
in
you've
with
been fighting.
they run in with Subramaniam Swamy, and all that happened.
No, 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 I don't know that one. No.
Yeah, so
All I know is that he calls everyone 2 rupee troll. That BJP pays us all 2 rupees. So this
two
is
rupees
quite.
too less, no? Don't you think? That would be an insult.
Yeah, yeah, we're not crores. I mean, when you look at crores like this, then 2 rupees is nothing. So now I understand why he was saying that. But
I mean, that's the reason I think, the reason I was trying to figure out why Elon Musk changed Twitter to X. I think that's the reason. Everybody was calling it 2 rupee Twitter troll or something like that. So he made it X, so that at least it
yeah,
becomes X
any
troll.
amount.
That sounds more respectable, I guess.
And I want to welcome Bipindra ji also. Thank you for joining us for the first time on the channel. And after all the off and on, yeah, we finally have you with us. And I wanted to invite you
Yeah.
because you have been tracking Chinese propaganda for a while. You came out with a report in 2021, and you feel very validated today because you've been saying this for a while. And of course, I asked you for your introduction and everything, and then I've not read it out. So I'm going to now be very professional and read out your proper introduction. And here it is. NC Bipindra is the chairman of Law and Society Alliance. The Delhi based think tank brought out a report in 2021 on Communist China's influence operations in India, particularly in the Indian media. Bipindra has worked as a journalist with several publications, including the Times of India, Press Trust of India, and Bloomberg News in his 30-year-long career. So, thank you so much for joining us, and let's get into it. Give us all the information and the data.
Advaita, thank you so much. It's a pleasure being on your show. We have been talking to each other on Twitter
Yes.
and probably even chatting for a while now. But yeah, this is the first time I'm on your show. It's quite a popular show, and you have great personalities like Sanjay ji and Smita ji, and of course my good friend Her Highness Abhijit on the show all the time. So I'm a big fan of your show. Actually, all the things that you do, particularly your Sunday Club. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
doing all that. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
all this work.
Yeah.
Of course, this
For two
NewsClick
rupees.
store. Yeah. So I will send the 2 rupees of mine to you as soon as
Thank
possible.
you.
2 rupees is for Twitter. What about a YouTube troll? How does a
Yeah,
YouTube troll
YouTube, we
get
should
paid?
get, I think, double.
I think yeah, we should pay at least 10 times more, 20
Not that
rupees.
double. At least add two zeros to it, maybe.
Yeah. In fact, this NewsClick thing doesn't come as a surprise at all to me, Advaita,
Okay.
and of course Smita and Sanjay ji, because I mean I've been talking about this for a very long time that the Chinese have been putting in a lot of energy, money, emotion, and everything into influencing the Indian people's mindscape for quite a while, and it's just not the media that they've been targeting. They've been targeting, I mean, my report, which is a 76-page report, we tracked about 9 sectors where they have been working very hard to influence the mind of the people there. All these sectors are, related to the people. Basically, it's the media, the social media, the tech sector, particularly the news apps that a lot of people are using these days to acquire news. I mean, WhatsApp university. Similarly, there are daily hunt universities also from where people gather their information. A lot of such apps that are available today, all of them funded by Chinese. So, particularly since we are talking about NewsClick, I focused on mainly the mainstream media, the influence that happened in the mainstream media. So, probably you must have heard of the kind of funding that the Chinese embassy here in Delhi does as far as the media personalities are concerned, particularly the influencers in the media world. The
Really?
embassy, yeah, of course they do. I mean, you can we take names in this show? I don't know. I mean,
Of
as
course,
I
far
of
as
don't.
course.
I
my
don't want to get. I don't want to
You
get
must
sued.
take names.
Yeah,
Say allegedly, allegedly,
yeah,
allegedly. These are allegedly. These are
yeah,
not. See, Smita's gone offline. Actually, someone rang her doorbell.
yeah,
But
I think so.
allegedly, I mean, these are all allegations. I just want to make
Oh,
that very clear at
yeah,
this point. Yeah.
Advaita, yeah, legally speaking, you can be safe by calling it allegedly. In fact, my report names all of them. I mean, if you are
Oh,
smart enough to go through the report, it's there. Everybody's names are there. It's
please give us the details of where we can
more,
access the report, and
yeah.
I'm sure
In fact, yes, I will kind of.
if you
It's
tell me now,
available
I'll
on
put it on the banner.
absolutely. Just type out law and societyalliance.in, leave a space, and Chinese influence operations report. So you will find it online. You will just get it online. This particular website that I've mentioned right now has this report available. People can go and access it. It's freely accessible. So I just put it out there for free access. So it's there, 76-page report. We have named names. Everybody is named in that thing. The newspapers, the television channels, all these people, the social media influencers who all received money, who are all doing China's bidding, we have named them. So
Oh,
it's not,
wow.
Nobody's
and
doing
it's
double cross.
no, it's it's 2 years since I put out the report. If I mean, probably your viewers should also know that I have a legal background. I'm also practicing advocate these days. So I did a lot of legal vetting of that report before I put out it. I put it out in 2020, even before this ED's action on NewsClick happened. But because of the legal vetting that needed to be done, we kind of delayed it and we released it sometime in August of 2021. So I mean, NewsClick was something that I missed. I did not mention NewsClick in my report. Let me just make it very clear. But of course, all other mainstream, because I focus mostly on mainstream media. I did not focus on the websites essentially. All these newly mushroomed websites and all these things that are being funded by Chinese, and the most of these websites, their funding is suspect. So I think there is a need for investigation into all these people's activities, and I'm pretty happy that this action on ED action on NewsClick happened. In fact, so similar action needs to happen on several other media houses. Uh, I'm sure the government is aware of these things and they are doing something about it. In fact, it's not just the media, even the think tanks have fallen prey to this kind of Chinese influence operations. A lot of universities, particularly universities in the NCR region, private universities in the NCR region, in fact, even government institutions, like the IIM Shillong and the IIT Delhi, IIT Chennai, are all influenced by the Chinese in some manner. They create this China studies centers in these academic institutions, and they are essentially Confucius institutes. It's illegal to start a Confucius institute in India, so they rename it as China study centers, and they do whole lot of influence operations through these things. And these academic institutions that I mentioned, the NCR academic institution, private institutions. um, I mean, you had a recent report on this electoral,
I was
manipulation
just
done.
going to say that. Is that the institute you're talking about? Because
Of
it
course, we
was
have named
about
that institution. We have named that
it's a
institution in
very
the trial.
high-end, exclusive sort of enclave of certain intellectuals. Which okay,
Absolutely, these institutions they have a China Studies Center. This particular institution has a China Studies Center, and in fact,
okay,
the Chinese embassy funds research by the students, research scholars from these China Studies Centers to visit. They fund their visits to China. They do a conducted tour of these, people to the Chinese, to China to study about China and write glowing tributes to China, the communist China, back home when they come back and write the research reports. So this is happening. In fact, the Chinese are running a journalism fellowship, for journalists, and several Indian journalists were part of this particular fellowship. When these journalists are taken, like Indian Express has sent
Your website is lawandsociety.in or .org?
Law and Society Alliance.in. That's the website.
Okay, Law and Society Alliance.
Alliance.in.
Alliance.
I think Sanjay ji is prepping for a show with you, which all the names. The
Of
work
course,
has already started.
it's too. Advaita, let me say it's 2 years. Nobody has got the
Yeah.
guts to sue me, because if they sue me, I have much more information on all these people. I'll expose them in the courts. So,
Wow.
so yeah.
Yeah.
So
Sanjay ji is also gone. He'll be back, I'm sure. But
yeah.
let me get Smita in very quickly. Smita, Editors Guild of India, when the ED carried out a raid, you must be familiar with this on NewsClick. Editors was very concerned. They said in their tweet, Editors Guild of India is concerned about ED raids at the offices newsclick.in and residences of its senior journalists and officials. Editors Guild of India is concerned that raids by government agencies are not used as coercive measures to suppress freedom and independent journalism. So basically, they stuck their neck out for newsclick.com.in and said that this was a question of freedom of the press, and this was the government, as usual, the narrative of the Modi government being tough on media. So, where is the Editors Guild today?
uh, sleeping, which is exactly what they're doing. But I want to bring up a larger picture. I've been looking at the explosion of independent digital media, and we all who come from the mainstream media background, we say brava. Like now there is suddenly all these websites have sprung up and who have been very very active since 2012. When Modi, I felt, came onto the national scene, and it was clear that he is likely to be the BJP candidate. And I have been wondering since 2014, what is this government really doing? Look at the series of events. There is a website, very very well known. At least I can say this very confidently in the Mumbai circles. It's been even the editors proclaim it is funded by the church. Okay, and this is a website which has been in the forefront of every agitation against the Narendra Modi government. I mean, I'm not talking about CAA, NRC, I'm talking about Ram Mandir. Right from 2012, they have been active. They did a lot of events around the 2040 elections, saying that Narendra Modi will never win and blah blah. I was invited to several of these events. That is number one. Do you remember the story about various 2019, if I'm not mistaken, this guy called Rajiv Sharma, he was again an independent journalist, I think a freelancer or something, and he was arrested for
Yes.
espionage by the Chinese, and he used to write articles. Of course, the hawala money, the funneling of money was there, but he used to write articles against His Holiness Dalai Lama. Then he was projecting the Chinese point of view, and then I think he was also fighting. I mean, doing this pro Masood Azhar kind of stories also. Now he was arrested, and again we went. We understood that, and we don't know what happened to that case. And today, to see the government of India, people say, oh my god, they have thank god they have a spine, that they stood up in the parliament and said it. But I think now that the government of India has trashed NYT on every issue, and now bringing up the NYT investigation, I felt that when you did these ED raids on NewsClick, okay, you could have had a press conference after those raids and told the whole world about what really is happening. I mean, do we need a validation from the perhaps the worst example in terms of liberal corporate media today? NYT's investigation is now at the forefront here. We could have done, the government of India could have, when they raided NewsClick, could have had a press conference and told us what really was happening. And you don't need any big investigative agency. If you remember, I'm not going to take names, so I'm just going to insinuate. This particular journalist from NewsClick, he was so arrogant, so nasty to women, sending DMs to women, and things like, for example, he would start his. Somebody used to say, first of all, I don't follow these people. Somebody used to send me things like, अरे भक्तो अभी तो दिन इससे भी बदतर दिन आने वाले हैं तुमको. Or this other woman journalist whose entire career is gone on this whole Chinese values and education in China and morphing pictures of Narendra Modi ji. I mean, you don't need some great investigative agencies to figure out what these people are up to. Suddenly becoming so financially well off, money is flowing to them. I just feel that there is enough evidence. First of all, the entire press clubs, I'm making this big statement and kill me for saying it, I don't care. The majority of press clubs in India, okay, are the bastion of the left. And not only left, these are radical communists who are holding these positions. So I'm not at all surprised. I know who's the president of the press guild, and I know her political background, so I'm not at all surprised that they are worried about NewsClick. My issue is with the government of India. I think that if so much information is in public domain about all these Chinese issues. I want to tell you one more thing. During 2019 elections, if I'm not mistaken, the big story was the Rafale story. There were two instances, and I've posted those articles. I don't know whether I posted it on Facebook or Twitter, I don't remember. The Hindustan Times and the Hindu did massive advertorials from China. Massive. And these were 4 pages. Sir would know perhaps, 4 to 5 pages, and national advertorials. So the budgets, national advertorials will go in crores. And this is happening in 2019. So what I'm saying is, the system from 2014, that these independent sites have happened. The fact that, I'm not at all surprised with their modus operandi, everybody helping everybody. Your son will work with my uncle's business, your daughter will be with my husband, somebody, that is what I slap, your slap. Then everybody will be using everybody's offices. Everybody will be getting the pie of all the money which is coming. Old hack, we know about this. I feel little, I won't say let down, I'm just saying you have so much information which is in public domain. Why is the government of India not? I mean, sometimes I feel that here is like he's my prime minister. As somebody who voted for Narendra Modi, I want to tell Narendra Modi, go after these guys, because this is not about just funneling money. This is literally like an anti-India activity. And to show so much, this whole I'm going to say in the next 2 days, this whole freedom of press and all this thing. But we all know the truth. Go after these people, because I think that they have nothing to do with journalism. First of all, none of them are journalists. Take it from me. We are old school journalists. We went to a journalism school and we literally worked hard all our lives to make it where we are today. None of these people are journalists. So I really want the government of India to go strong on these people. And if there is so much information available on a website, why are we waiting for New York Times?
But Sanjay ji, coming to you on New York Times, most of us are not a big fan. In fact, many Americans, predominantly, I mean, American public opinion has also shifted away from the New York Times. So it's not just here. But the fact that this expose has come from the New York Times and not so-called Godi media or 2 rupee trolls has a different bite to it, doesn't it? How do you debunk your kind of beacon of press
But who is the Godi media? The
Huh?
ones who are really sitting in Godi, or the ones who are alleged to be sitting in Godi?
Yeah, yeah.
Right now, from whatever the facts that we have in front of us, it is these leftist media which is actually sitting in the Godi of either the Chinese or the global deep state or some such person, and they keep accusing everybody else. Everybody else meaning people who have nothing else to fall by except maybe honest revenue that they can get from, and they manage within their means. But these people who are getting crores and hundreds of crores and I don't know what all, and they have support of things like IPSMF and Omidyar on one side, and you have the Ford Foundation, and you have Soros Open Society, and what all. They proudly flaunt themselves as independent journalists. So I think I'll go with Smita ji, whatever she said about them. About New York Times, I think somehow, whatever it is worth, that this government still labors under a little bit of complex and keeps looking for validation from the established players like New York Times and Washington Post. Now, if somebody was to be making losses like Washington Post does, uh, I don't think they would have much clout within India, but Washington Post or some other big loss-making entities, they still carry a lot of influence over the Indian minds. My issue is that on the one hand,
The anglicized Indian mind.
the
I
anglicized
think
Indian minds.
yeah.
Actually, the Prime Minister hit the nail on the head last in last year's independence speech when you talked about those five resolution. Uh, of course, two of them, number one and number four, were the usual one, Vikasit Bharat and Ekta and Akhindata and all that, unity. But the other three were very, very important, and if had they been taken to the I wouldn't say conclusion because that takes a long time, but those three had the potential of actually building in the grand narrative of India. And those were, if you remember, number one, Mansik Gulami se Mukti, that is decolonizing the Indian mind. And the second one was, that was number two. Number three was uh, विरासत का संरक्षण या विरासत का गौरव, whatever, taking pride in your heritage. And number five was, uh, I think, नागरिकों का कर्तव्य. नागरिकों का कर्तव्य, if you translate it in the Indian parlance, it actually means dharma. You know. So I'm surprised that there was very little follow-up from the Indian establishment on those points, because that is the grand narrative that India needs to actually fill in. I just recorded a program with Adi Achint on how to counter the global deep state. And these are the points that came in, the very important points that we actually have to have that confidence in ourselves. That assertion that the Prime Minister made was full of confidence. But then our establishment doesn't seem to have that confidence at all. And we see that in the kind of flip flops they do. Some little examples I can give. I've just I have been taking a fling at uh, our French connection lately, and that comes in for some very interesting reading. I mean, this one of the major NewsClick, I should say, big wigs, or the reporter, you can call him a reporter or whatever, is Ajaz Ashraf, who just happens to be, and he's very critical of the Prime Minister, all the time writing against the Prime Minister or speaking against him. And he just happens to be the brother of the India's ambassador to France. I mean, is that a coincidence?
Okay.
I mean, Javed Ashraf, who is there ostensibly to neutralize the radical French left, which according to me actually is the breeding point of all the talking points of the left all over the world. They only shoot off their US counterparts because US counterparts seem to have the money, but these guys have the brains, and they work off them. But they are the ones who provide the hard rounds. They are the
Sanjay ji,
ones who
I'm sorry
provide
to
the
disrupt your
ammunition.
thought process. You took a very important name, the ambassador to Paris. In fact, at one point of time, he had a very, very long tenure in the PMO as the most important joint secretary.
I know. And why? You know why?
And
He just happens to be the son-in-law of Sayyid Shahabuddin. You know
yes,
Sayyid Shahabuddin?
yeah, of course, of course.
Advaita ji, you know Sayyid Shahabuddin? You remember him?
In fact,
No, she doesn't. Babri Masjid Action Committee.
Yeah, I know Sayyid Syam.
in fact,
No, I was asking
this-
Advaita ji. Advaita ji.
Advaita.
can respond.
No, I am not familiar. In fact, I want to know which PMO was he in? Dr. Manmohan Singh's, I'm assuming.
no. The
No.
present
Oh.
PM, the present PM's
Oh.
previous PMO, the
And
first
okay,
tenure
2014 to
PMO.
2019. Okay.
Yeah, and he continued even after 2019 for some time. He
And
was probably the
it's
longest
not the
serving joint secretary. He was
But
probably
members
the
of the
longest
same
serving.
family can have different political leanings, and that's quite
Yes,
possible. And
yes, yes, yes. That's
yes,
quite right because his wife, Ghazala Shahabuddin, has definitely a very close leftist orientation, which can be seen in the kind of pictures that she puts out. And her book was, of course, launched by Jairam Ramesh. And so even that can be treated as something, she can be independent.
In,
But then,
in, in,
why does she support the French left
in fact,
openly? What
now
the
yeah, as a
hell
diplomat's wife,
is
yeah,
her
as a
her
diplomat's wife,
husband
that's not
is
something you should
posted
be doing.
on a posting in France, supposed to be uh, promoting India-France relations, and his wife is promoting the French left, which is supporting the riots that are going in France. I mean, what's happening? I really sometimes I feel that this government, the left hand doesn't really know what the right is doing, and the other way around. In fact, right doesn't know what the left is doing. That is more appropriate. So things are. Uh, when you say New York Times, why we take heed of New York Times? We will
Exactly.
take heed of every little, even if some Toronto Sun writes something that will also actuate us. But if largest circulating Hindi paper writes something, that would not be taken seriously. So that decolonization of the mind and that negationism that has struck to us after the independence, thanks to the kind of schooling that has been done to us, I think that is still not going. That is something that we really have to think very seriously about. And I was very glad when the Prime Minister spelt out these things, because these are the things that we founded Jaipur Dialogues with these very objectives. So when he spelt it out, I was actually over the moon. But then, having been in bureaucracy for 35 years, I always know that good intentions rarely mean much unless they are translated into action. And my friends in the bureaucracy, they are great in absorbing all kind of shocks, which they did very bravely.
May I add
In,
something to what was said
yeah, yeah.
about
So,
all these universities in NCR and
Mhm.
that the impact. I must say that the universities in the western part of India are also on the radar, especially these deemed to be universities and the private business schools. And the proposal is a kind of a master's degree in MBA with Chinese universities. So you nowadays, the trend is you do what is called like a global MBA, where each year you are in a different country. So that is being proposed. I know the two universities who, I mean, I'm very embedded in digital media education here. So and the proposals have come where students should be here first, then they could be trained little bit in Mandarin, and then they go to China, and then they do large part of their MBA there, then they come back and the Chinese companies will give them jobs. Just apply your mind when I say this. And when I heard this, I was like, oh, as of now, I'm aware of two universities who have got these proposals, and my free advice, which we in Marathi we say "Taicha Salla." I said, stay away from this before you lose all your licenses to even run an institution.
Before you become another NewsClick.
Yeah, and today both of them, the pro vice chancellors of both these universities, have messaged me saying that ha ha, like बच गए. तुम ऑलमोस्ट बीजिंग जाने वाले थे, आधे आधे जाके वापस आ गए हो. It's a
I've
state.
always, I'm just, I'm just
One
putting it out into the universe. I've always wanted to go
I
to
want to
China.
ask Sanjay ji
Oh,
as
I
well.
traveled.
One, I want to ask these questions to both of them because they're so knowledgeable in this. Is that how is it so easy to infiltrate? I mean, I understand that the media, because media में के पास पैसा नहीं है, that I understand. But how easy it is, for the CCP to infiltrate like this. I'm finding it. Don't these people have any basic knowledge? Geopolitics kya ho raha hai is desh mein? Media, I understand, they have no money. This independent media under the garb of free speech and all rubbish, according to me. Half of them don't have money and brains, and that Modi hatred is deep in their DNA. But what about business? What about academics? How is it easy to infiltrate? It is so easy. Can you tell us what is the main reason for this?
Just a quick intervention. Even this profile of Neville, we should just call him Singham because that's something everyone
Yeah,
can connect with.
Yes,
Even
he is the
even
Sri Lankan Singham.
yeah, even our Chinese Singham, he was very close to Huawei. Have I pronouncing it correctly?
yeah, Huawei, yeah.
Huawei.
Very
Huawei.
Huawei, very close to them. So that brings in your corporate link. Please go ahead, Bipindra ji, and then Sanjay,
Please
please
In
go
tell
ahead.
fact,
us.
in fact, we think that just because a person has a doctorate behind his name, that he is more intelligent than a person who doesn't have a doctorate. But that's not true. In fact, most of these doctorates don't know many things that ordinary citizens like me know. That is the fact. Or people who are quite aware of what is happening around the world know, and people who study these subjects know. These doctorates don't know that. These And also, please let us understand that these private universities are mushrooming in every place, but they lack funds. They really
Exactly.
are after funds.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
Chinese, there is no dearth of funds for the Chinese as far as their influence operation is concerned. Let us understand that. I mean, it's the same for the Indian embassies also. If you want to do any influence operation, you just don't have any dearth of funds. You can pump in any amount of funds for these purposes. So the Chinese don't have any restriction on how much funds they are giving these institutions. See, NewsClick, they got what, around 40 crore rupees in a matter of 3 years. I mean, it's not a small amount at all. It's such a huge amount.
Yeah.
The universities want funds for the research work, so that is where they falter. That is where they falter. They take money, and they've taken the money, they are the slaves of the Chinese embassy. It's very clear. So that is what, and that is how all these things. I mean, in fact, the Chinese have been pumping money into China-specific think tanks also. There is a huge institute it's a very popular institute in Delhi which does China studies. And the name is out. I've already told you the name. There is a huge institute in Delhi which does China studies. So this institute has been receiving huge sum of money from the Chinese embassy and also from the government of India till
Oh,
my
nice.
report came out. The government of India has been giving crores of money for doing studies on China, and the Chinese embassy was also giving crores of money to do study on China. And who do you think this institute will be towing the line? They towed the line of the Chinese, not the government of India. After my report came out, the government did its investigation and they acted on this institute. Now the funding has dried up from the
So,
government side.
So
So
basically, Beijing dialogues is where we have to head, Sanjeev ji.
Advaita, just a minute. So today morning, when the story broke, I heard that because of COVID, this one private university in Maharashtra could not go and do this MBA program because they were almost ready, but COVID happened. And a very senior person, a friend of mine who's former journalist but now is into communications in Bollywood, was also given an offer to come and scout certain locations of Bollywood. So today, all these three people were in touch with me. I said, Ganpati
Oh,
Bappa
you're
hora
right. You're right. This reminds me. I was also asked to write a script of a film based in China.
hai.
Yeah,
yeah,
you're right.
yeah.
You're right. Yeah, I got
This
to
is
do
all
that.
before. This is all before COVID. COVID changed many
No,
things.
no,
Of
this
course,
is
you
mine.
cannot
Mine was
go
like, I
there
think,
because of the virus.
20,
But
maybe 2015, 2016 or something, but something based around China because they want to encourage. This is, of course, my link is a producer only, but
In
the whole
fact,
thing was,
the
yeah.
entertainment industry is one of the biggest areas where the Chinese have been putting lot of money and their energy to
Ah,
influence. In fact,
right.
uh, recently Amir Khan promoted a Chinese movie
yeah,
in India. Have you seen that video? He was paid
No.
crores of money to promote this particular Chinese movie. Just go to his Twitter feed or whatever, you will find this video somewhere. So
Okay.
similarly, Amir Khan's Dangal movie was promoted heavily by the Chinese in China. They paid. I mean, it didn't do so much money in India. The loss that they made here was compensated by China by
But it would not be that suspicious, because being from the industry, I know that China was one location, another location I think was Mauritius or something. So there
yeah.
are destinations like this.
Mauritius, come on,
Yes.
Mauritius is so small.
No,
No,
but
that is
for shooting locations, they want to open up to Indian shooting. So they
no.
want
I'm not
movies.
talking. I'm not talking about shooting locations, Advaita. I'm talking about production, funding production houses. Okay,
Like that.
funding
Oh,
absolutely like that,
And
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 they
I,
like
also
I just want to I
like
just
they've
want to
done in Hollywood, like they've done in Hollywood, and now
and
and
you
I
see
also
Oscars
and
going to
circulation.
like, yeah,
Since you are from the
Oscars.
film industry, and
Yeah.
No,
it's
and
also about circulation.
this particular PR person, friend of mine, was asked that, can you ask these production houses which are making these, the top movies, is that, can you create a Chinese character, you know, and then then we will come in, and you create the script in such a way that there is a Chinese character, then you shoot it here and all, and I was like, oh my god, I mean, so I
They
said
do.
that's
They
how
do
it
dictate.
starts.
They do dictate the script
Yeah.
also. And moreover, it's also about distribution. Since Advaita is from the same industry, distribution is a big thing. Okay, so they also involve themselves in distribution. That is how they help these production houses which toe their line to make money. So this is a huge racket. Actually, entertainment industry itself is a huge racket, and the
I
Chinese understand how the entertainment industry occupies the mindscape of the Indians, and they are
I expect
investing
a
heavily
lot
in it.
from Anurag Thakur. He did a press conference and he did all this, but there is too much on his plate on this subject, and I think they should really, really not depend on a foreign newspaper investigation, and they should really go and investigate themselves. And please let's not wake up 6 months later with another story.
In fact, the
So
government
yeah,
of India has the wherewithal to
take
do
this
all these
seriously.
investigations. I mean, it came to Law Society Alliance to do this investigation. I mean, it's not an
No,
investigation. We did
but from
research.
But from the point of view of China, I think they're very effective. They have been able to leverage their influence in a way that India has not been able to do. What stops the Indian government from going to Hollywood and saying, "Come on, let's work together. Let's do a film. Let's do something." I mean, it's these are things that are not illegal. Yes, it raises questions
But
about people
it's
who
about buying
accept.
power, Advaita. It's
No,
about buying
I
power.
know.
The buying,
Yeah.
yeah. So the Chinese have loads of money to buy.
Now
India,
today, but they've been on this project for the last 20 odd years. It's not like the last 4 5 years. So you build it brick by brick. I don't fault the Chinese for what they're doing. That's what they need to do. I was
yeah,
reading that
I also don't fault them. I'm only asking the government of India to be vigilant and the people of India to be vigilant against these things. That's
Absolutely,
absolutely,
that's
absolutely.
the
absolutely.
see. I mean, academia. Smita asked about the academia. Academia is they have no clue as to
They
the
have no
influence
clue.
operations that the Chinese are indulging in,
Look at
and
what
and
Ashoka and Jindal are doing,
and,
actually.
and the and the and the kind of legal soup that these institutions, these academic institutions, are going to get into very soon. Okay, if the government wants, they can kill their happiness. That is there in the hands of the government. In fact, I mean, Smita was also talking about this, ecosystem that works. In fact, there are two. One of my study that I did about two funding agencies, which are basically charitable trusts, which function out of India. One is that I'm sure you are aware of it. One is called as the IPSMF. What is it called as
Independent and public
Independent and
spirited.
Public Independent and Public Spirited Media Foundation, and there is another one called as the National Foundation of India. Please go to their websites. It's an open source, and just have to just go and look at their website. Look at the funding that they have done. Which kind of media have they funded? Who are the people, personalities, the media personalities that they have funded? In fact, the IPSMF, only for the sake of showing neutrality, they have funded one Swarajya. Go on, I will not name others. Just go and take a look at the others. I
I'm
mean,
aware
all
of.
your it's a challenge to all your viewers. Let them go and take a look at it and the kind of ecosystem that they are working on. The other one is the National Foundation of India. I mean, it's the ecosystem. She said, no, the people keep slapping each other.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. The NFI supports IPSMF. IPSMF supports NFI. The NFI associates support, NewsClick, and NewsClick will support. I mean, this ecosystem works so well, and there are a lot of industrialists who are funding these institutions. If you go and take a look at the names, you will know who are these people and what
This
sort
is
of
all
a.
in your report. This is all in your
No,
report.
no, this is not there in my report. This is an absolutely new information that I'm giving you now. This is an absolutely new information. This is the
I
media ecosystem, the ecosystem of influence operations, how they work. So this is how they work.
I also want to say that though this it's not related, since we are talking about the ecosystem and funding, that big story before 2019, I think a year before that, if I'm not mistaken, the attacks on Christians. It's a story which keeps on going into the European media a bit, this thing, So those stories, do you know that India has massive presence of the Vatican radio in India? Nobody is aware of it. Nobody knows what the hell is happening. And the fact that there are websites in India which are openly funded by the church, and they played a very big role during these church attacks and the CAA protests. I mean, that's why I say I think that the INB ministry has its plate full, and I really want the INB ministry to be one up on these investigations. Bring up all the, let us not depend on a Western media. Again, I'm saying for investigation. Do your own investigation. Tell us what the truth is. Let the people of India know rather than these sudden shocks. Now, today, everybody has woken up to this Chinese,
Yeah. And
there's a question. There was a question. Academia, let me tell you, the academia is, they may pretend that that they are aware of it and all that, but they do not understand geopolitics. And imagine a situation, just imagine now during Galwan, or this hypothetical situation during Galwan or anything, hundreds of our students in China, okay, and we have this very tense situation with us along the border. Just imagine this situation. Just imagine. I'm not saying anything beyond this. So the academia, I mean, God help us, huh? Seriously, I think because of COVID, this whole thing literally fizzled
has
out.
come to the fore. Yeah. Sanjay ji, I want to also ask you this. I was watching Republic today, and Republic is going hammer and tongs at it. I think at 9 p.m. they have a show about this, and they had interviewed Paranjoy Guha about his consultancy with NewsClick. And he was completely like, distancing himself. He said, I'm just a consultant. I'm not a spokesperson for NewsClick. I have nothing to say about this. And
Yeah.
subsequently,
Consultants have this privilege,
He is in
they
a
can
suit.
always distance themselves.
yeah,
He
that's
will be in
true.
a suit.
Yeah, then subsequently, Republic reported he'd been paid 40 lakhs and things of that nature. So, what do you think? And even Bipindra ji can answer this since you've explored this ecosystem quite a bit. It's really the cat has been set amongst the pigeons, right? By this revelation, because a lot of people are now
Actually, if you ask me, uh, I don't set much store by what has happened today, because you have to take the larger picture. The larger picture is that this ecosystem has been flourishing, and what the Chinese have paid NewsClick or what the Chinese have invested is small change compared to what uh, the global deep state is doing. What is open society? What is Ford Foundation? What is your Omidyar? And the web of the shell NGOs that they've set up, and the kind of funding that was coming to the uh, different NGOs, and then they were passing it on. In fact, one of the best things that this amendment in the FCRA did was that they plugged that particular loophole. And if you notice again, the decibel level of all this funded media has gone up in proportion to the difficulties and pain that they experienced after that FCRA amendment. Because now the FCRA amendment says that whatever money you receive after getting an FCRA license, you have to use it yourself. You cannot pass it on. You cannot pass it on because that's what these people used to do. There used to be one kind of a holding company which would get very large amount, and then they would pass it on to smaller NGOs to do odd jobs, the errand boys kind of people. Now they can't do that now, and all that is monitored because everything has to be put in an account in the designated SBI branch. I think it's Barakamba Road in Delhi. So that is
Parliament
making
Street.
things very difficult. Sorry?
Parliament Street. Parliament Street.
Okay.
SBI branch in Parliament Street.
Okay. But one branch. So
Oh, yeah,
that
one
has
branch.
made things
All
very
the
difficult for them.
FCRA accounts are in one branch. The
Yeah. Entire countries, FCRA
entire
accounts
country's
are in one
FCRA
branch.
accounts are in one branch.
Now, if you look at bigger operation, I mean, you look at the Indian School of Business. What is their funding? Where is it coming from? Who are the people behind that? And you'll also look at the funding of these what is called the private universities. And forget that. I mean, we come to the point of the mental colonization. You look at people like Mahindra, you look at people like uh, Murthy's, Narayan Murthy's son. Who are they funding? They are funding Harvard chairs who are totally anti India. So many of them, so many of our corporates, because they think it's the cool thing. It's the cool thing to fund some Western big university, Ivy League university, and its chair, even if it happens to do anti-India research and push their woke agendas, leftist agendas, uh, purely what is called colonial agendas into India. So it's a much larger issue, and actually, frankly, uh, I am quite amused that the people have woken up suddenly because one story has come in the NYT, as Advaitaji said. Why are we shouting so much just because it has come into the NYT? It's happening in so many places, as Bipindraji rightly said, that he has himself exposed so much of it. And we should be taking cognizance of these well researched papers first, rather than acting in this knee jerk fashion just because, oh, NYT said this. Yeah.
Smita, what do you think this does for media credibility now? Because in Parliament, names were taken. It's all over social media. That speech of the MP is going viral. Uh, what does this do for further? I mean, we know media credibility is at an all-time low, but since you're, so deeply embedded in the digital media space as well as faculty of journalists of tomorrow, you have a lot of students going into the field. What do you think happens like when these things come up,
So,
and especially with young students?
So we saw in the last 15 years the interest in pursuing pure journalism has gone down. So the last year batch of two big journalism schools in Mumbai, I can say this, I'm associated with them. I mean, the final year batch, we just had 10 students each. A batch which used to be like 70, 80, 100 students 15 years ago has come down to 10 students,
My
and
God.
eventually, even though they may do their specialization, I don't know how many of them will pursue journalism also. I mean, that's one thing. But I think journalists in India are doing the biggest damage to journalism in India. This is my take. I've worked with them. I have seen all the ecosystems on on the left in a very deep way, and I think they went into some kind of a collective meltdown. They never thought that they campaigned from 2012 and used everything. That this the whole idea of Narendra Modi becoming the prime minister has made everybody mental. That their thought process of that rational thought, the fair thought, that you have to write, you have to, when you are a journalist, I mean, the first fundamental of journalism and reportage, I mean, God bless MV Kamath, who was my first teacher in journalism, the former editor of Illustrated Weekly of India. I mean, he said that, you know, you have to do fair reporting. You report both the sides and let the reader decide. I think we lost every fundamental of journalism. We put it in the basket and we went into now becoming, and in India at least, to be to be a journalist you have to be anti Modi to a level that you can write anything terrible, nasty, mock pictures. So, you know, and this self regulation is not working. Okay. So there is no point in saying that the profession has and digitization was happening. Then came COVID, and they are literally, I think, all mainstream publications are in in a very very bad state. Okay. And I don't think that they have even realized the enormity of this Chinese situation. You know, you can write against Modi, thus gali do, whatever it is, but this intrusion of the Chinese funds in Indian media is, I think, we're just sitting on a time bomb. These people have, in their obsession to write against Modi and be anti Modi, they do not even realize the trouble they are into. And before I say, I also want to say that, um, there is a deep interest, and I'm telling this now, maybe after a year we will be discussing it. There's a deep interest of the church in running journalism schools in India. There is a deep interest, and the money is coming. You will see these fancy journalism schools with 7 children, 7 to 8 students, and they said we are okay. Even we are able to place every year 7 to 10 journalists across India through these institutions. We are happy with it. You know, I was aghast when I was invited to be a speaker in this absolutely fancy institution led by the church. And this has been happening systematically, since the last 10 to 15 years. So after a while, we will be talking about this very soon. We will wake up one day.
Well, Sanjay ji, you want to say something?
I want to leave now.
That's what I was wondering. I said suddenly he wants to say something. He wants to leave. Now, Sanjay ji, thank you so much for gracing us with your presence today. And same thing with Bipindra ji and Smita, of course. Always a pleasure to have you on. I hope you all will come back. Once again, you can tell them about your report, Bipindra ji, because a lot of our viewers in the comments have been asking where they can find it.
Yeah, the report is called as Mapping Chinese Influence Operations in India. So mapping Chinese influence.
I found it.
It's very easy to find. So just have to go to lawandsocietyalliance.in. That's the name of the website. And beside that, you type this Mapping Chinese Influence Operations in India. If you just, the two things, if you type out, you will get the report, first report that you get on the website, Google search or whatever search you do, will be this report. So you can easily download it. And it's freely available. Anybody can just download it and read it. So it's the content is free, but please do credit the content of the report to Law and Society Alliance. That's it. I only expect a credit. That's it. ₹2 nahi aata hai mere ko.
And Sunday Club is even better. We don't give ₹2 to any of our panelists. So the slightly cranky ones have not come today, but it's okay. As you said, we are a large country, and Sunday Club is surviving on demographic dividend. So we get to call other people on the panel.
Not only you, the entire Pakistan is surviving. The Pakistan YouTube industry is also surviving on this.
Yeah, because Indian YouTubers also really
They
watch.
are only discussing India, nothing else.
Yeah.
In fact, this New York Times report has kind of, though Sanjay ji, I have a slightly different opinion on this, because see, many a times the ecosystem relies on publications like New York Times to whip India badly. So now the what do you call it, the crosses on their necks. So let us flog it as much as possible.
I know, but that's a different discussion, because there are many things. In fact, I will be doing a discussion on why these people are changing at 10 p.m. So that's a different discussion.
Also, I mean, it's very interesting because this Singham, his wife is also like this. They're like very much the activisty couple, and progressive causes and all the buzzwords. And it seems in 2015 she was heavily criticizing China for dissent, and about the Uyghurs and IYY. She was shown with him in photographs, and then the money started flowing, and suddenly, like 2019, she's like, China has a dream economy and is lifting people out of poverty, and the Uyghurs are terrorists. So I mean, so much for all this socialism nonsense is the moment you get paid, suddenly you lose every value system that you own.
That reminds me, 2012 or 13, Saudi Arabia passed a bill that says that atheists are terrorists. So
Yeah.
anybody can be labeled a terrorist.
In fact,
Okay, Advaita ji, I think I must go right now.
I will just make one last point,
Thank you.
Sanjay ji. I'll just make one last point. Recently, there was a report by the Hindustan Times how Chinese agents are approaching journalists and influencers to work for them. Without
Nobody's approached me here. Come on.
sir, one person recently approached me.
He's approaching me
Please
also.
give them my address. I want to be
In fact,
approached.
I wanted to tell you that somebody approached me very recently. They claim to be a think tank working in Singapore, but I searched for them. There is no such think tank available, and obviously, obviously they were Chinese agents. They did approach me. Or yeah, 2 rupees bhi nahi mila hai.
Okay, just to be, we are very open. Hello, putting it out into the universe, China. We're very open. Call me maybe.
Oh, you are open society. Okay, bye bye. I take leave.
Okay. Thank you so
But
much,
on
Advaita.
on a
Okay,
serious
bye-bye.
note, I mean, China is a deceptive country. It is an enemy country. I think collaborating with them in any measure is going to be extremely problematic given the present circumstances. And Smita is right. It's almost treasonous to do this at this point of time with this country unless it mends its ways and changes its ways. So to be peddling their propaganda and to platforming their views and their worldview is, I think, just a terrible, terrible thing to do, and really don't do it. Okay, there are other ways to make money. This shouldn't be it. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and do like, share, subscribe, and we'll be back with you soon with another topic.